Hello friends, my name is Michael and welcome to another episode of Magnum Videos. Today we're going to return to 3018 Brooklyn and I'm going to tell you, as promised, about the old woodcarver with tuberculosis. So stay right there, I'll be back in a minute and we'll get started. Unfortunately, I don't know the old man's name. He lived right next door to us at 3018 Brooklyn in the apartment right next to ours. And he was probably between 65 and 75, I would guess. My mother said he had tuberculosis and I should stay away from him so I wouldn't catch it. Anyway, I couldn't stay away from him because I was fascinated by the wood carving that he did. Every afternoon in the summer, he would go out on the front porch with his tools, his knives and stuff, and start carving or continue carving on something that he was working on. One summer I watched him create a beautiful wooden walking stick. He started out with a big piece of, I think it was a hardwood of some kind. I know it wasn't pine. I don't think it was balsa or any of those other cheap carving woods. I think this was a hardwood, like walnut or cherry or maple or something like that. Anyway, the first day when he started on it, it was just about a 4-foot long square block, probably 3 by 3, maybe 4 by 4, I don't know for sure. But that's what he started with. And as the summer progressed, I watched him carve the wood away so that when he finished, he ended up with a thin spindle that went from the bottom to the top. And wrapped around that spindle was a coiled snake with every scale carved on it, and as he went up to the top, the head of the snake became the handle. And one of the most interesting things that I watched him do was to carve out the little holes for the snake's eyes, and he had some red jeweled eyes. I don't know what they were. They were like a stone of some kind, and they were red, and he glued those in to each eye socket. And then he sanded everything down. He stained it. He put a cap on the very bottom, and I don't remember if it was, I think it was brass, like a brass cap on the bottom that he drilled in there and screwed it in. And when he finished, it was absolutely gorgeous. I was fascinated by it the whole time. And during that time, I kind of forgot that my mother told me to stay away from him because I got as close as I could to watch what he was doing. Anyway, I haven't come down with tuberculosis yet, so that's a good thing. And that's the one story. I have one other I'm going to tell you this evening, so stick around while we put in a card. I forgot to mention one thing. The old man did leave me with some words of wisdom that I have remembered all these years. It was a warm summer day, and he was just finishing up the beautiful walking stick. I think he was putting the brass cap on the bottom. And I asked him, I said, how do you carve something so beautiful like that? How do you carve that snake on there? And he kept working and spoke to me while he was finishing it up, and He said, you know, Michael, he said, it's not nearly as difficult as most people think. He said, in fact, it's really quite easy. And of course, being 6 years old, I thought,
wow, if it's that easy, maybe I could do something like that.
and I said, well, how do you do it? What's the secret? And he said, the secret is, and he said, don't tell anybody this.
Yeah, I won't say a word. I won't say a word.
He said, you start with a big block of wood.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you get a very sharp knife, a sharp carving knife for wood carving.
Yeah, yeah.
And then all you have to do is just carve away everything that doesn't look like a snake. And that's exactly what he did. Okay, the other story I was going to relate to you was about the Forum Cafeteria. Now, I don't think the Forum Cafeteria is still in Kansas City any longer, but back in 1955, it was. And on summer days, or on, yeah, I think it was probably not weekends, but on summer days when I was out of school, sometimes my mother would take me downtown. She had a friend that worked at a jewelry store down there. So we would walk up Brooklyn to 31st Street and catch the bus. The bus would take us only so far, and then we had to get off and get on a streetcar, which had the overhead wand that the sparks flew off of as it went along the wire. That was fun. I enjoyed doing that. And we finally arrived downtown. My mother went to the jewelry store and visited with her friend for a while, and then she took me over to the Forum Cafeteria. Now, the Forum Cafeteria was one of my favorite places. When you walked in, the interior was huge. It just seemed to go on forever. And along one side was the serving bar. There was like round chrome tubes that you took a tray on and set it on there and pushed it along. First thing you came to was the meats. There was roast beef. There was ham. There was pork chops. There was bacon. There was fish. There were scallops. There were shrimp. They even had oysters if you wanted those. And then my favorite, of course, fried chicken. And it was fried to a beautiful golden brown. And I would usually get a drumstick and sometimes maybe a wing to go along with it. So that took care of the meat part of it. Then the next thing was the vegetables. Naturally, there was mashed potatoes and gravy. Naturally, there was corn on the cob. There were beets. There was okra. There was carrots. There was peas. There was green beans. There were red beans. There was rice, if you wanted that. There was every kind of vegetable that you can think of, you could find there. And you just took your pick, whatever you wanted. I usually got some mashed potatoes topped off with some white gravy. The next thing was the bread selection. There was white bread. There was rye bread. There was pumpernickel bread. There was wheat bread. There was biscuits. There was cornbread. There were dinner rolls. There was any kind of bread you might want, you could find it there. I usually got a couple of biscuits, and I usually got some butter because that would work on my biscuits, and it would also go on my corn on the cob that I picked up back at the vegetable section. Anyway, by the time we got through with all of that, our plates were pretty loaded, and we decided to go sit down and we would eat our lunch, and then afterwards we would go back for the dessert. Now, when you got to the dessert area, there was naturally the melon was there to begin with. There was beautiful red watermelon. There was orange cantaloupe. There was green honeydew. There were strawberries, raspberries, cherries, blueberries, then the Jell-O. And it was usually cut in cubes. There was cherry Jell-O, there was orange Jell-O, there was lime Jell-O, there was every kind of Jell-O you could think of. Also, there was pudding, chocolate pudding, banana pudding, pistachio pudding, everything you could think of. They also had ice cream if you wanted that, even with cones. So then there was cake. It was like devil's food cake, angel food cake, carrot cake, any kind of cake you could think of was there, and then the pies. That's where I spent a little bit of time because I always wanted either chocolate cream pie or coconut cream pie. Sometimes I would get both because it was so hard to decide. But in addition to that, there was peach pie, there was apple pie, there was cherry pie, there was pecan pie. Any kind of pie you could think of, they had it. But I was only interested in the coconut cream and the chocolate cream. And I always got a big glass of milk to go with my dinner. My mother usually had iced tea. And we finished off the dessert, drove back home to 3018 Brooklyn on the streetcar and then on the bus, and walked down Brooklyn to our little house, our little apartment at 3018, and went in. And if it was getting close to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I would park myself in front of the TV, turn it on, and watch The Adventures of Superman. And that's the story for today. I do have one more I'll relate to you next time, and that's the fiasco where I accidentally set our car on fire. So be sure and subscribe, and click that little bell so you get a notification when I upload that video. I hope you'll hit the like button on here. Leave a comment if you are so inclined, and tell your friends. So I think that's it for now. Until I speak with you again, and even after that, you stay focused.